All right. Okay, can you see it? Can you see it?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right. So first of all, when you bring samples to a customer on premise, always think about presenting the company. Okay. What I recommend is to actually keep your bottles in the bag. I know sometimes we're tempted to put everything in there, but the bottom line is that at Ferrand we actually have a lot of SKUs. I mean, you saw all those samples on the table. You put all of that right away. 80% of the time, the guy behind the bar, is looking at his watch right away. Say, oh shit, that's gonna be a long one. Okay, I think the best thing to do is introduce the companies. Like, I have a portfolio that I want to talk to you about. It's called Maison Ferrand. They are producers of fine spirits, independent producers of fine spirits. They are a cognac producer. They are a gin producer, liquor producer, rum producer, and they've been in business now for well over 30 years, and they pride themselves into making some of the finest spirits in the world. Okay, you start just like this. You tell them it's not a big company, it's not a big corporation, they don't have like all the biggest budgets in the world, but what they make is really in the bottle. Okay, and now what you do is basically introduce the first one, right? So I always start with this. Why? Because this is how we all started. This is the origins of the company. Okay, we are a cognac producer. So you put that on, and it's like this is, one of the most successful cognac. It's Ferrand 1840. These guys are cognac producers, but not just any cognac. They make Grand Champagne cognac. So sometimes people know, sometimes most of the time people don't. You tell them, it's like, Grand Champagne. So this is Premier Cru of cognac. This is the highest quality of grapes you can find in the region. So are these guys, like the biggest brands out there? No, absolutely not. The biggest brand, we all know what it is, right? And it's like 60% of it worldwide. I would never name the brand, because at Ferrand, we prefer to talk about ourselves, and I know there is some competitors out there that talk about us and sometimes are really disparaging us. One, that's not professional. Two, that's kind of stupid because, you're here to talk about yourself, right? So I would say that Ferrand is very small. And just to give you an idea, last year they exported basically the quantity that the biggest brand worldwide ships in one day. That's an interesting number, but it still stands today. So we are here comparing basically a champagne grower, right, with the biggest brand of champagne out there. Okay, so this is, a very artisanal, Premier Cru, Grand Champagne, best grapes available cognac. Also, sometimes if you want to explain the quality of Ferrand by explaining Grand Champagne, you tell them, it's like, sometimes on labels of cognac, you don't see anything. So when you don't see anything that says like besides cognac, right, it means that it's a blend of all the 6 different regions, and usually it's mostly the biggest region, Fin Bois. Okay, Fin Bois is the biggest one with a sandy soil where they have very light wines that will produce very light distillates. Usually after 2 or 3 years in a barrel, they are ready to go. That's the VS business. Okay, us here, Grand Champagne, right? This is the bullseye of the region, the center of the region, where you have the purest concentration of chalk. Very rare because that's not the biggest part of cognac, right? But this is also where you have cognacs that demand a lot of maturation. So people really don't use 100% of this. Okay, so you need to have all stuff to make Grand Champagne cognacs very good. Okay, so always make sure they understand the unicity of this product. If they still don't, because I did this like 2 weeks ago in Georgia. I talked to somebody actually who really loved cognac, but he had a big bottle of Wheatrez behind his bar. I don't know if you guys know Wheatrez. That's the most expensive bottle of Remy Martin. That's 100% Grand Champagne. Then you point at that bottle behind the bar and you say, that bottle right there, that cost $2,500, $3,000 retail. This is the only one that's 100% Grand Champagne in that portfolio. That's to tell you the value of Grand Champagne grapes. Okay, so that's just like as a starter. I'm giving you all the details. Maybe that customer doesn't want to hear all of this. I'm giving it to you anyway so that you have it in your bag, in your brains. Okay. Now, this one is very special because that specific cognac is actually no other cognac from the 20th or 21st century. Okay, we're talking here about a cognac that has been made, produced for bar programs. Why is it for bar programs? Because this is the type of cognac that was actually used in bars when cognacs were used globally in every single bar. Yes, because before what we call the phylloxera crisis, that crisis at the end of the 19th century, just, right at the end of the US Civil War, there was that bug that basically decimated the French vineyard, like almost entirely. 80% of the French vineyard was gone. That bug is called the phylloxera. So all of a sudden, the cognac vineyard, okay, went from 265,000 hectares to almost nothing. And before that, cognac was like the whiskey of the world. That was like the brown liquor of the world. People were actually saying brandy of cognac, okay? And cognac was exported in every single country. That was a big one. That means that every single cocktail that was made out there, right? If you have any questions, let me know because I don't see all of you guys. So let me know if you have any questions. Interrupt me, please, okay? So my point is, before the phylloxera, right? One cocktail out of three in most bar programs. There is a book that actually proves it. It's a classic book about Jerry Thomas, a bartender that that's I think is the oldest cognac cocktail book. Adrienne will give you more detail. She's very versed into the cocktail history. Right, one cocktail out of three was made with cognac as a base. Today you don't see that anymore in bars, but back then that was the whiskey of the world. Mint julep was made with cognac. That was the original cocktail with cognac. A Sazerac was a cognac cocktail made to promote a cognac brand called Sazerac des Forges. Okay, so you had a big origin of cocktails with cognac. We decided to reproduce those type of pre-phylloxera cognac, so higher proof, very bold, a lot of muscles. We did a whole research on this. And this is when, you can really talk about the research of the 1840 and all the work that was done back in 2010, when we actually collaborated with a cocktail writer and historian, David Wondrich, okay, who is a very good friend of the company and our master blender. They are really, really like good friends. They work together on basically finding what old cognacs, 19th century style cognacs, that were used in a mint julep or in a Sazerac tasted like. Okay, so we analyzed different old bottlings that we found, in auctions in Europe. Okay, and we basically chose one called Pinet Castillon 1840. That's a house that doesn't exist anymore, but that was 100% Grand Champagne Pinet Castillon 1840. We decided that this would be the perfect representation of what people were using about 200 years. About 200 years ago, like 180 years ago. Okay. Now we analyzed it. Okay. We looked at the taste. Okay. And we made a blend that would be very similar in taste to what that cognac was. And that's the 1840. So basically what you're looking at right here is liquid archaeology. Okay. And that was made for cocktail programs. And that was the revival of cognac in cocktail programs. For those of you that were in the business, before 2010, try to think about the amount of restaurants and bars in Atlanta that had a cognac cocktail on their menu. Not easy, huh? And that was really the revival, the renaissance of cognac cocktails. We won best new product at Tales of the Cocktail with this in 2011. That was a big deal. Okay, so now out there you have brandies and Spanish brandies. You have even like very cheap cognacs at 40% alcohol. Okay, that will probably come in maybe at $22, $23 wholesale, which is crazy, because that's not sustainable for cognac. These guys are not doing the right thing. But here, obviously, it's more expensive. But this is 90 proof, 45% alcohol, 100% Grand Champagne. And here you deliver taste. That's really the key. Okay, so if people are telling you, but I have this, that's, better cost per ounce, I'm going to use that. So, okay, well, you can always do a sidecar with this and a sidecar with 1840, right? And then you decide which one is best. because here you deliver taste. That's exactly what it is. And taste can be measured, by the way. It's called, it's measured in volatile substances by hectoliter of pure alcohol. So and usually like a standard American whiskey, would have a minimum of 150 grams of volatile substances per hectoliter of pure alcohol. Okay? That baby right there that you're looking at is about 480. So that's truffle juice right there. Okay, this is very intense. Any questions on the 1840, guys?
Just passing around a sample for them to taste.
Yeah, give it a taste. Absolutely. Lucky you. Actually, you know what? I have a bottle here. So you have a huge delivery of fruit, right? But at the same time, it's long, a lot of depth, so a lot of wood and, like rancio components. When we talk about rancio are all the components from the, the aging of cognac in a cask. So it's a combination of outside and inside oxygen. So it's not completely like what people would call oxidation, right? But those rancio notes are basically the exchange between oxygen, tannins, the wood components, right? They will give your cognac a lot of different levels after just fruit. Okay? And that one has a lot of layers, and it's also very bold in the mouth, right? So that's actually a cognac you can put with a big cube of ice. You can sell that to bourbon drinkers. That high proof thing is really very important because it brings a lot of muscle to that cognac. Okay? This is, if people ask you, how old is it? Okay, so that's what we call a white blend in cognac. So the base is actually 3 to 5 years. Okay, and why is it a white blend? Because the oldest cognac would be around 18 years of age. Okay, so you have basically an explosive combination where you have old ones and young ones in the same room, and that really creates that kind of like explosion in your mouth. Because if you have a narrow blend, you will have something way more refined that you will be, feeling as a long finish. Okay, this one is not all in the finish. It's a lot more in like the first impression, and that's what you want for a cognac that will be, sustaining dilution or shaking with ice. Okay. So this is our 1840. Now, once you have this on the bar, right, then you go to the next piece of archaeology, because this one basically came right after the 1840 in our history. When we produced it, when David Wondrich and Alexander were finishing up on the 1840, okay, Wondrich wanted to do a brandy crasta with the original Pinet Castillon. I was there, when that happened. And the original Pinet Castillon, that's a bottle that we bought on auction at around $6,000. So it's like, stuff to put in a cocktail, right? And then Alexander said, so why do you want to put, Curacao, in that original 1840? Because he asked for Curacao to make the brandy crasta. And then we realized, because of what basically David told us about the use of dry Curacao, that Curacao is not just the blue stuff. The blue stuff is not that recent, by the way. It was invented in the 1900s, but the blue stuff was really invented by the Dutch to revive a category that was dying. Why was it dying? Because that category already in the 1900s was more than a century old. The very first Curacao came out in the 1780s, 1770s. This is a very old category. And Curacao is really the ancestor of what we call today triple sec or orange liquor, any kind of orange liquor. So we learned that history. We looked into it. We did a lot of research. And then we discovered that there was 2 different types of Curacao at the beginning. There was Dutch style, so made with basically unaged components. Okay, mostly distillation from malt grains. Okay, and then French style, which was made with aged cognac and made in the tradition of liquorists that were also, liquor makers, like the guys that make Chartreuse, for example, and there were also cognac makers. Like Marnier, the Marnier family is a cognac maker still today. So that you don't see their cognac anywhere because they sell their liquor. But back then, Curacao Marnier was made by the Marnier family that makes cognac, for example. So just for a purpose of history. And these guys, they always had techniques was to use vegetal infusion. So you have like different types of tannins and herbs and spices that are there, like, infused in brandy or in the pastille distilled brandy or cognac, right? To enhance the citrus element, right? So that was the French style. We tasted a lot of different ones and we came up with our own recipe, which was basically a combination of a lot of different ones. We're very lucky when we do research on old spirits from the 19th century, because back then everything was published. It's funny. It's like, today we have publications of how a great 3-star Michelin chef will be making a dish in his kitchen, right? Back then, all the master blenders and liquorists were basically publishing the whole recipe on how to make a liqueur. Obviously you needed to have all the ingredients and the skills and the equipment, just like, by the way, a 3-star chef, nobody can replicate really those recipes in their own kitchen. But back then, that was the thing. People were reading this, consumers were like all over this. That was public knowledge. Today, it's impossible to find. Okay. So we basically combined a lot of different recipes and we went towards a recipe that would be drier, which is why it's called dry Curacao, right? And this is 190 grams of sugar per liter, while most orange liquors are around 250 to 300. Okay. Now, how is this made? I'm really explaining everything to you because, a lot of people think sometimes when they see an orange liquor that's not Cointreau or Grand Marnier, they say, oh, that's a Me Too. It's like, no. This is not a Me Too of Grand Marnier. This is not a Me Too of Cointreau. We're not trying to be them. We are our own products. We are our own making. Okay. So you have basically 3 different elements in there. Okay. You have the pastille distillation of a grape spirit, okay, where we infuse the Laraha orange peels. Those Laraha orange peels, those are bitter orange peels. They don't come from Curacao anymore. They don't have enough trees there. Okay, the best bitter orange peels today, Laraha orange peels, come from Haiti. Okay, so that's where we get them from. We infuse them in a grape spirit. We do a pot still distillation where we obtain an essence of basically bitter oranges, Laraha oranges. We have a vegetal infusion, with about 14 different components. Some of it there is walnut shells, for example. You have some prunes. So you have a little bit of vanilla. Vanilla is great to enhance citrus as well, right? And then we have also a specific sweet element. I don't like to say sugar here because it's not just sugar. That's really an old technique where you burn the sugar. It's not a toasting. Okay, you burn it to some kind of like a pastry-like caramel. It's cane sugar, right? And then you dilute it and you fortify it with cognac to 23% alcohol, right? And then you age that fortified burnt sugar syrup, right, into an old cask where you would have extraction of tannins and different wood component and some of the cognac component as well. And you use that as the sweet element, that will be blended with a 2-year-old cognac, in that case, an 8-year-old pastille and distilled brandy, right? And then the essence of Laraha oranges and the vegetal infusion. So all of this to be integrated in a big oak vat, basically, that are closed, right? For about 7 to 8 months. This is how we make Ferrand dry Curacao. So you need a good, 9 months to make this product. It's important that people realize the amount of work that's done there. And that's why today it's rated again last week at Terres de Cocktail at the New Orleans Spirits competition that is during Terres. we got best citrus liquor in the world. We got Chairman's Trophy at the Ultimate Spirits Challenge in a blind tasting. We got best orange liquor, 96 points. This is one of the best orange liquors out there. So of course, applications, margaritas all day. Okay, you can, and again, when you present this for a margarita, okay, if people don't believe you, it's like, okay, make your margarita like you make it usually with your usual triple sec or the orange liquor that you're using, right? And make it with dry curacao next to it, and let me know what you think. The beauty of dry curacao is that you have an age component to it that will give your margarita actually a depth, and a beautiful complexity that you would have if you used a reposado tequila, for example, or an añejo tequila. So it's very interesting to try it, with the account and see what they think. In terms of cost per ounce, we are extremely well positioned. I think that the last time I was in Georgia, we were actually cheaper than Cointreau, which makes me very, very envious of Cointreau because these guys don't age anything and they're more expensive than me. So you have, I think, liter sizes, right, guys? I think it's in your portfolio now. You are equipped, to really present an orange liquor modifier to the account. That could be the house orange. It could be in a lot of cocktails. So margarita, but Wondrich said it, by the way. Wondrich was part of this project as well. A bar spoon of this goes in every single cocktail. That's very true. It's also a fixer. Some bartenders have told me in the past, sometimes when a cocktail comes back to me because the people don't like it, I pretend like I'm throwing it away, but actually I'm putting it back in the shaker, putting a bar spoon of curacao and pouring it in the cocktail, and they love it. So this is really like the modifier. This is like the Band-Aid for cocktails. This is people say it's bartender's ketchup. Okay, why not? But my point is that thing is a staple in the bar program. That's why it's in that presentation today, and that's why you need to have this in your bag each time you're going to be presenting Maison Ferrand for the first time to an account, or you really want to have an impact behind that back bar or that cocktail menu, or just to show that bar manager the depth of your portfolio as a distributor. Okay, any questions, guys, on that dry curacao?
It's delicious. It's really good.
This is so key that you're tasting it as I'm speaking, because you can tell that those products, again, are made with a lot of care, but at the same time are so affordable and can provide so many solutions for cocktails and are so versatile. You're really coming in. I mean, you are that guy that comes in, in the back door of the kitchen of a 3-star Michelin restaurant, and you're the guy who's got the special pig from Spain, the special truffles from Italy. You have that. It's in your portfolio. And those chefs, they count on you to be the purveyor. You're a purveyor. You're not a distributor anymore with products like this. You're a purveyor of fine spirits. Okay? Now, once you've done this, once you've been through like archaeology with those guys, that's a lot of history. I'm giving it to you. You don't have, again, you keep it in your mind. Sometimes you have to go quicker, right? Obviously, that presentation today will not be 20 minutes. But you can make it 20 minutes if you really focus on what those guys have on the cocktail menu, what they have on the back bar. You can tell already, who's coming in, spending what kind of money. So there is a lot of different ways of making that presentation shorter. The next one, the next group to present right away is this. Okay. You notice that I'm not into rum yet, right? Why? Why do you think I'm not into rum yet? Any ideas?
Wasn't that the next thing that you made?
Because rum is the easiest sell in our portfolio. That's why. You always go from the most difficult ones, and gin is definitely one of the most difficult categories still today. I'm totally aware of this. The competition is fierce. Now you have local gins in Georgia. That doesn't make it easier, right? So here, it's important to show Citadelle as the gin of France, Gin de France, made at Maison Ferrand, and this is a classic. Okay, so put the two right away. If you have just one, it's okay, but put the two right away on the bar. It's okay to give them like a vision of Citadel with two beautiful bottles, two beautiful expression, right? And tell them it's like, now this is made by Maison Ferrand, and this is a classic, and we're very proud of this. That gin was produced back in the days when nobody cared about craft gin. That gin was launched in the US in 1998, right, when everybody was getting excited about another blue bottle called Bombay Sapphire. I know, I was there. That was my first year in the company. I'm not that old, but I started very young. And the whole point is like to show these guys that this is not the new novelty. This is not the cute little gin that just came out. No, this is a classic gin. So what is Citadelle? Citadelle is a true small batch little gin. It's made in a 25 hectoliter pot still. Okay, it takes 14 hours to make 1,000 liters of that thing. Okay, so it's a fact. It's an artisanal gin. We called it artisanal gin before people would be calling anything artisanal for spirits. Okay, we use our cognac stills. We used to use actually our cognac stills. Now we have dedicated stills at the Citadelle Gin distillery. This is my background right here. Because we used to distill during the summer when we were not making cognac. Now that Citadelle Gin is much bigger worldwide, we needed to have its proper distillery. So now when you come to Cognac and visit us, you can see the Citadelle Gin distillery that's working all year round. They are all cognac stills, all the same design. Okay? And they make a gin that's very creamy. That's got the texture is very soft. I don't know if you guys are tasting it, but what you're drinking right now is room temperature, 88 proof. Okay, and you drink it very easily. Okay, so imagine this obviously on ice, but diluted in a gin and tonic or made in a martini. Okay, that gin has an incredible quality, has been super consistent since day one. We've never changed anything to the method or to the infusion. The infusion is actually patented. It's a progressive infusion. So progressive infusion means that in a period of 5 days, we will be infusing 19 different botanicals. Juniper berries being obviously the dominant botanical at 77% of the whole mix, right? And each botanical will be infusing or extracting its aromas at a specific point in time and in ABV, in alcohol percentage. So we start at 85% alcohol all the way down to 55% in a period of 5 days, adding one by one each botanical to create an infusion that will have the complexity, okay, that will have all the dynamics, that will produce that taste that you have today. Because you have botanicals in there, like, that little violet roots, that little violet that you put, like not even 1% of it in there. Well, if you put it at the beginning, you'll never taste it. But if you put it right at the end, 2 hours before, that's it. That's why that infusion is so important for us. Okay, so it's a highly rated, very smooth gin and recognized gin, in the world and definitely in Georgia. Why am I telling you this? Because we all know that cocktail menus can be very competitive for gin right now. There is a lot of things happening, lots of programs, and the big guys, are investing a ton of money. It's like, please do not get discouraged by not being in a cocktail, because that gin could be a back bar gin that actually moves. That gin sells in stores. That's why we have 175s. Okay, and the guys, some of you that I know have retail stores. You have both on and off. That product is being picked up by Georgia consumers. So those same Georgia consumers, they go to your restaurants. If they see the gin that they have at home, they will drink it. It's really that simple. You can tell that bar manager is like, okay, well, can I please have representation behind the back bar? This is the #1 French gin in the world. You don't have any French gin. Can I please be part of your selection? And then before you know it, these guys, put cocktail menus together. They look at the gins they have behind the back bar, and then they're like, oh, let's try it with Citadelle, see if it works. It happens all the time. You put it in the back bar, it actually rotates. People like it. A lot of the kids working behind the bar taste it, like it, put it on cocktail menus. So it doesn't always have to be like forcing yourself in the well, forcing yourself on the cocktail menu. It could be very well a back bar representation. Now, if there is resistance on the classic one or the original one, right, then go to the Jardin d'été and explain that we have another expression of Citadelle that is more like a summer expression or a fresher expression of Citadelle, where we actually don't do only a pot still distillation, right? But we have also what we call a low temperature or vacuum distillation, right? Where we distill from a whole lemon, for example, without the skin. Why do we call that low temperatures? Because very slow, low temperature distillation will allow you to actually bring in much heavier molecules, okay? And this is how you produce perfume, right? When you have a perfume of flowers, for example, you need a very low temperature to have the freshness of the flower scent, okay? This is the same way when you distill from a fruit and you won't have the perfume of that fruit. So we do this with a whole lemon, right? And we do this with also the flesh of a melon. Those small little melons charentais are from the Cognac region. They're super intense. They are like all orange, right? And we produce a perfume of this. So perfume of melon, perfume of lemon, that we actually blend in with what we call the cooked gin, which is Citadelle original in a Cognac pot still. Okay, that's been spiked with more botanicals, and one of them being yuzu. So you have a yuzu distillation blended with perfumes of lemon and melon all together in a bottle. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, I don't know, have you guys tasted it?
Yeah.
What's the verdict?
Delicious.
And they are both line priced. I believe that today Savannah has liters of Citadelle Gin Jardin d'été as well. If not, that could be always rectified in the future, right? But it's also priced to be competitive. So both of them can be used very well on cocktail menus. Okay, a lot of people, nationally now are definitely using Citadelle in the well because we're not that much more expensive than Tanqueray, for example. In certain cases, we're actually same price or even less expensive. Which drives the owner of the distillery crazy because each time he comes to a market and he sees Citadelle Gin at the same price as Tanqueray, he's like, why? Our cost of production are so much higher, because producing in a pot still is way higher, in a small one than producing in a column or or even bigger equipment, right? The yield is not the same. So we don't care. Huh? We want to provide, again, you are purveyors of fine spirits at an incredible cost so that they can use incredible quality in their cocktails and still pay rent. Okay? Any questions, guys, on the gin?
Yes, sir.
No questions?
No questions.
Okay, now what's the next group?
Rum.
Rum.
There
Planteray.
we go. Voila. So this is obviously, this is the one, right? So this is probably what you sell the most out there. But today is a portfolio presentation, okay? So spend some time with the first 4 items that I showed you. You will not be disappointed. People sometimes do not realize that the producers of 3 Stars, Original Dark, Stiggins, or OFTD are actually really good gin producers, really good orange liquor and cognac producers. Okay, so now you put those 4 right away on the bar, right? And you explain Planteray. So Planteray, we are rum producers, Barbados rum producers, Jamaican rum producers. Okay, we also do rum aging and blending from other origins worldwide. Okay, we actually specialized in the diversity of rum origins. Planteray is probably the rum line that offers the most diverse access to rum taste. Sometimes people ask me, Oh, Planteray Rum. It's like, the guy who cuts my hair sometimes. Oh, you're in the rum business. Planteray, how does it taste like Planteray Rum? I'm like, shit, I don't know how to answer that question. How does Planteray Rum taste like? The answer to my hairdresser is, I don't know. What do you like for rum? Which rum do you like? Well, I really like, Bacardi, or, I really like Mangay, or, so people will always have like different answers. I really like Zacapa, for example. And then you need to like refer yourself, okay, what is the plantation rum or the Planteray rum? Sorry, obviously new name, Planteray rum, that, could really fill the bill for this guy. So that's why you really have to know who you're talking to with Planteray rum. Okay. So here we have expressions of rums, of molasses, that are actually blend of terroirs of different origins. So here today we won't be presenting single origins like the Planteray 5-year or Planteray Jamaica or XO or Isle of Fiji. Okay, here we'll be talking about blending different origins together to create an incredible taste or a base for cocktails. Those are called the bar classics. That whole line right here is called the bar classics. And the bar classics are recognizable in the line because those are the bottles with a round label that goes all around, and they usually don't have the straw, they don't have the raffia around the bottle. Okay? Those were created solely for the purpose of cocktail programs. We did not start with that line. Our first bottles of Planteray were actually vintages, from Trinidad, Barbados, and Jamaica, the trio. Back in the days, 1999, 2000, I actually was part of the team that launched it in the US. So it's like those vintages that you still have in stock today, but totally different packaging, but still a vintage date, around 10 to 12 years old for the one single origin. And then we started making blends of one origin with a Grand Reserve at first, and then 5-year. Okay? The 5-year Barbados today is still one of our most recognized single origin blend out there. And it's actually an incredible product that you're welcome to present. But again, sometimes you really want to focus on the bar program and present to people solutions that they can really go with right away. Okay, those are the 4. Okay, here, those were invented. The first one actually was the 3 stars, Planteray 3 stars in 2011. So that's actually, we think it's much older, but it's actually pretty recent. Planteray 3 stars was a request from the UK team that asked Alexander, it's like, well, why don't you make a white rum? And Alexander's response back then, and frankly, the whole team worldwide was like, absolutely no way. No. Let's not get in the white rum business. This is way too intimidating. This is the biggest category of rum, right? And frankly, the white rum category, back then, it's still very much like today. It's a very neutral product. For us, it's like, maybe not. It's like, why do we want to be something like this? And then we thought more about the origins of white rum and how white rum was actually used, in the 1930s and 1940s, when daiquiris were really the cocktail in Cuba. What kind of rum were they using? And we discovered that back then, those white rums were white rums with a lot of taste, molasses, some vegetal cane elements to them. And that trend of much more neutral rums is actually very much the trend of vodka in the 1960s and 70s, when people decided to put vodka instead of gin in their martinis. Okay, so it's actually a very recent thing. And being Maison Ferrand and being the guys that really revere the spirits history, we decided to just go back in time and put out there in 2011 actually a 1930s white rum. That rums, where rum is actually a verb here, right? A white rum that has actually molasses element, pot still element, a big texture to it, right? A little bit more of a higher proof, okay, to sustain the ice and shaking, right? So that we could give people a solution for rum style that would have been used back in the 1930s when people were serving daiquiris. Okay, so The result of this is 3 stars. 3 stars for the 3 stars of the Caribbean, where we blend 3 different styles. Okay, Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad. Okay, Barbados, that's the backbone of that blend. People will ask you, okay, so what are the percentages? Okay, and people, we always want to know this. It's like you tell them, it's like that's the majority of Barbados rum. Okay, this is the base. Okay, so it's blend of pot and column. The pot still here will give you a much bigger texture. Okay, very few white rums out there have any pot still components. Okay, and then we need to have an age component in there, and the age component actually is really from Trinidad. But the age component that is blended in the 3 stars, is actually not, the color of this is not filtered. And because it's not a very colorful rum to start with. We have in Cognac, giant vats, Cognac vats, that contain Cognac a long time ago, that are very old, where you can actually store white rums in them, column white rums, from Trinidad, right? And when you have basically some evaporation, some aging happening, right, with very little extraction from the oak. So you actually have an aged product, okay, that will bring some age elements to a blend, right, without bringing a dark color to it. As you can see, Planteray 3 stars is a little straw, right? It's not completely white. That's because you do have some age components in there, and we make the decision to not filter it. Because sometimes you have white rums that have been aged, okay, and then filtered to remove the color and make it white. That's called a carbon filtration. And when people do carbon filtration, they remove the tannins from the oak, but they also remove all the tasting elements. So why the hell would you blend to get some taste if you're going to remove it anyway? Okay, so here we don't do any carbon filtration. That's really the big secret of 3 stars. Okay, and then the Jamaican component, they're like the spice. They bring that funk or that cane element to it that really will make a 3 stars, a very complete white rum, a very versatile white rum. Okay, so is it like Money Musk white overproof? Absolutely not. Okay, we're talking here about a hint of Jamaica. If you put the Jamaican element in here is like less than 3%, right? If you put like 5%, 7% of Jamaican rum in that bottle, that's it, you're done. It's going to taste like Jamaican rum. Okay, so we might as well, release a white Jamaican rum, and we have it. It's called Money Musk. It's in your portfolio. Okay, here the whole idea is to really have that, little touch of high esters. Okay, so the high esters component here is not aged; it's unaged high esters, and then some also aged pot still Jamaican rum. Usually around 7-8 years in very small quantity to also bring some depth to it. Okay, so this is the Planteray 3 stars blend, blended in Cognac during 8 months for full marriage and integration with all those different components. Okay, now that 3 stars, so has been rated best white rum in the world at the Ultimate Spirits Challenge. We're very proud of this. Because sometimes we present it like, okay, I have that white rum. It's good. It's not expensive. You should use it. Okay, good. That's a good way to present it. But really, the best way to present it is like, brace yourself. You're just about to taste the best white rum in the world. And people taste it usually, and they like it. It's very, very well made. What's the cost per ounce on that thing now in Georgia?
I don't know the cost per ounce. It's $15.77 on a liter for the bottle, but I don't have it broken down by ounce.
So you know what that means, right? It's less than 50 cents an ounce. Less than 50 cents an ounce for that quality. That's pretty damn good. I think they did the job, right, at production. And so that's definitely something that can be presented for well solutions. To be in the world, to be the house white rum. What are you using right now? Again, blind taste everything with them. Like if they have if they're looking for a house rum for their mojitos, or a house rum for a lot of different things, right? Okay, take your best cocktail with white rum and tell me what you think. Okay, but this is definitely one to present, for a cocktail solution, because it is very profitable and delivers great taste. Now, the one that was made right after the 3 stars, and I will always remember when I had my first bottle of this, because I was sales on tour in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and the original dark, right? I brought it with me in my suitcase, and I had the Wondrich taste it at the time, in the hotel lobby, and he drank it by the bottle with his little beard, and he drank it by the bottle like this, and he said, "Oh, that's fucking delicious." So, oh, nice, because this is line price with 3 stars, and that's included. So we asked Alexander and his team to produce a dark rum, because people always think in the rum business it's white rum and dark rum. That's a very simplistic way of looking at rum categories, right? But sometimes you got to tell yourself, okay, if you're gonna make a white rum, let's make the best freaking white rum ever made. That's 3 stars, right? But then dark rum, what is really dark rum? A lot of people think, oh, dark rum is it's dark. That's right, because a lot of people don't age anything in dark rum. They just put a ton of caramel. Is caramel a bad thing? No, it's just an age element. It's a tasting element. Sometimes the caramel could be actually fortified and aged, so it's a blending element as well. Sometimes it's way to, most of the time it's used to adjust coloring of a blend. Okay, whatever. But we're not in the caramel business. Okay, we're in the rum business. So we decided to call it original dark, where dark rum actually is all about depth of taste, where you have a real age component to your dark rum. So here it's 2 islands, Barbados and Jamaica. The base again is actually aged Barbados rum. Okay, and then we spice it up with some aged high esters, some aged pot still, some unaged high esters as well, right? So you have actually even more of that Jamaican spice to it. So here you have an original dark that's a true workhorse, like a big workhorse for cocktail programs, for anything aged rum. So if people don't want to spend too much money on an aged rum and have something delicious behind the bar, this is it. Okay, this is the one. Okay, so you can have a lot of different cocktails made with this. This is fantastic for tiki programs. I mean, that's such a profitable item for a ton of cocktails. Okay. Any questions, guys, on both 3 stars and original dark?
All the blending is done in Barbados?
No, all the blending is done in Cognac, because this is where we have all the ingredients. This is where we have all the components. So in Barbados, it would be complicated to do that there, because then we have to transport the blend to France and then reduce it there. It's very important that we have, blending ingredients, like all the different components right there, so that we can integrate layers by layers for integration, for marriage, right? And then, there is a technique as well, and I'm not gonna, talk too much about that because it's gonna take forever, but it's called progressive reduction of alcohol, right? So where you reduce the alcohol percentage, but by layers. So you do this as you blend. That's what the best professionals do when they make spirits. They don't just put water at the end. That's very bad to do this, because if you do this, you have a process of calorification that will really destroy all the complexity that you've been achieving by blending. Okay, so it's important that everything is there, in the same area, to get to that finished product. Okay. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Sometimes I get sidetracked, but okay. Now the next one is a phenomenon. Okay, the next one is a product that we never really wanted to make. So this one started at Terre de Cocktail. There was a late night discussion between, again, Wondrich is part of this. So, to recap, David Wondrich is 1840, Dry Curacao, and Stiggins, right? He's part of those 3 projects so far. Okay? We worked together for a lot of different things. And he was telling at the time, Alexander, they were always hanging out together. I was with them having drinks. It was 1 a.m. These guys were talking about what they were doing, and Alexander was asking him, so, okay, so what are you working on right now? So I'm doing some research. These guys are complete nerds. I mean, I'm telling you, it's like when you're half in the bag at 1 a.m. at Tales of the Cocktail, you're following their discussions, it's exhausting. It's they're talking about like, whatever happened 250 years ago when all you want is another vieux carré, that's so anyway, David was telling him, well, I was working on Charles Dickens and researching the Pickwick Papers. So Pickwick Papers is like a comic book that was in the newspaper back in the 1850s, 1840s in old Victorian England. Okay, and they have like different characters, So he was telling that to Alexander because I want to see what the trends were back then, what people were drinking or eating or thinking. Okay, great. And then he told Alexander, but there is one character in those Pickwick Papers that you would love. The guy is called Reverend Stiggins. Oh yeah, why? Because he's a hypocrite. Because he's preaching temperance by getting drunk on pineapple rum in his little flask. He's always carrying a flask of pineapple rum. So Alexander was like, wow, I love this guy, yes. And most importantly, what? They were drinking pineapple rum in England in the 1840s. And I was like, oh no, please no. And then David explained to him, it's like, yeah, actually that was the beverage of the riches back then, where you could actually get pineapple, which was super hard to find, right? And then delicious rum, like Jamaican rum back then, was like where you would infuse pineapple in Jamaican rum and actually serve your guests with this. That was like a display of wealth. And Alexander said, wow, that sounds really cool. You know what? I'm going to make a pineapple rum just like that. And I was like, no, we don't need to. No, I'm going to make it for myself and we're going to drink it with David and with the team and we'll see. So anyways, he made this, right? He found a really cool way to actually make that infusion of pineapple stable. Because I don't know if you guys ever tried to infuse fresh fruit in any spirits, but the first week is delicious, but then after that, it's nightmarish, And he found a way to get it done right in a very natural way, where you actually distill from the skin of the pineapple. First of all, you have to find a fruit that's super intense, okay, overripe, like not just like good to eat, but really, really very ripe. You macerate the skins in that case 3 stars at a high proof at 65% alcohol, and you distill from that maceration and you obtain an essence of pineapple. So it really smells like a fresh pineapple. Okay, and then you use that essence into the infusion. So infuse actually the fruit, the pulp, the fruit itself, the flesh of the pineapple into original dark at 75% alcohol. So very high proof as well. You have maximum extraction of the fruit. But then as you do this, you integrate the essence into the infusion, and you do this in oak casks, not cognac casks, oak casks that are specifically made for it, with very little toasting. Okay. And that integration will actually, with that high proof essence of pineapple from the skins, will make really that infusion stable. So that's how he made Stiggins Fancy. And at first, we tasted it, and it's funny because the first batches are not like the ones that we have today. It took some time, to really fine tune it. But the first batch, of course, was delicious. But then the biggest dilemma for the whole team selling Planteray was like, how do I explain to my distributors, to my customers, that we make fine rum, but hey, wait a minute, we also make pineapple rum? How do I explain this? So there was a big resistance at the beginning to put this on market. And the compromise was actually to bring it to Tales, again, Tales of the Cocktail, but for one group of bartenders called the Caps. And that the decision was to make this product, one batch of 1,000 bottles, donated to the Caps. So each Cap, that year, that was in 2014, would get a bottle of Stiggins Fancy to bring home, just to thank those guys. I don't know if you guys know the Caps. They are like the army of bartenders. They're like the Navy SEALs of the industry that basically make Tales of the Cocktail possible. You know, they are selected on their skills, on their level of knowledge behind the bar, and they are super hard worker, and they do everything during Tales. Like they prep all the cocktails, they make sure all the seminars are running smoothly. These guys are incredible, but they're also the elite, you know, of the young first generation of bartenders every year. So that's great because these guys, you know, become the talents worldwide of all the best bars in the world, right? So we decided to thank them by giving them a bottle each and donate the proceeds of the sale of those 1,000 bottles to our distributor in Louisiana, to the Caps as well, so that they could have, you know, 2 bar scholarships, 2 bar 5 scholarship. You know, that's a class that was actually you know, invented and created by the group Pernod Ricard at the time, which is great because it gives them also a degree. You know, they go to New York, so we pay for the accommodation and everything. So that was our thank you to the Caps, right? And then of course they loved it and they wanted us to make more. So we started just like this, 1,000 bottles, and then we made another batch of 4,000, and then another batch of 8,000. You know, and then 14,000, and then 48,000. And today, we make a little bit below $600,000 for the whole world. And last year, these guys in Cognac peeled 41.2 tons of pineapple.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I don't know what's the most delectable thing to look at. You know, Grand Champagne Cognac guys peeling pineapple. Or just like, you know, thinking that you know, at one point we did not even want to launch this. You know? So this is that has become a staple now. It's like there is just no other product like this out there. You know, a lot of people think, okay, well, Stiggins is a rum that actually you have to have. It's like, you know, like sometimes, you know, people think that you know, they should have a bottle of Chartreuse behind the bar. That's like, you know, the Chartreuse of rum right there. It's like, you know, nobody makes it like this. Nobody, you know, and it makes a incredible daiquiri. So pineapple daiquiri, I mean, I'm talking to your mainstream accounts, guys, you know, forget about the craft cocktail, you know, hipster bars, right? I'm talking about mainstream accounts, bigger volume. It's like, well, how about you put a pineapple daiquiri on your menu? You know, and pineapple anything sells on menus, as you know. You know, and then to make a pineapple daiquiri with this is just incredible. Why? Because it's rum with a beautiful finish of pineapple. It's not pineapple in your face, right? When you taste it, it's made to be like this. We never wanted ever to have a pineapple flavored rum like you have some of them out there. It's okay. That's just a totally different product. Okay. Planteray Stiggins is rum with an incredible finish of pineapple. It's actually refined. Okay, and when you shake this in a cocktail, you have a rum daiquiri that has a hint of pineapple that's absolutely delicious. Okay, so that's it. This is Planteray Stiggins. I gave you the whole story, the making process, but people have to understand that this is just like a very unique product. Okay, and that's part of our bar solutions and bar classics today. You can make Negronis with this. You can make old fashions. Stiggins old fashioned is absolutely fantastic. You can actually put it in a rum blend. You know, sometimes people like to have rum blends for tiki drinks. You can do so many things with this. Okay. Any questions, guys, on Stiggins?
Which rums would you suggest? I have a place opening up that wants to do like a house swizzle.
Uh-huh.
What would you suggest for? Would you use just one Planteray item? Would you use a couple? What do you think would make the best?
So, you know, Adrienne, I don't know what you would say, but I would say original dark all day on this. Right? What do you think?
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if an account is elevated enough in their cocktail application, you can ask about split base. But what's great about our lineup, especially the bar classics, is that they're already multi-island blends. They're already basically split base in one bottle. So we're saving people the step technically. I mean, all that to say, obviously with a tiki background, I would say like more is more, but you know, if we're talking from a sales standpoint, especially depending on what we're trying to push or what what is the most readily available and also financially sound for a well cocktail placement or like a basic cocktail placement. The original dark is a workhorse. It shows up and it works well with spice elements. So like any swizzle is going to have falernum or, Angostura bitters or maybe like a allspice dram or something. So it needs to be able to stand up to that. 3-star would probably
So
get
now
lost.
what you can do is put a floater element, which, gets us into our next one, right? So there is always that rum out there that's so intense that just half an ounce of it is great, and that's the OFTD, right? But it's always easy. Sometimes, like Adrien said, rum blends, sometimes they can be complicated because that's a lot of prep and you need to be consistent, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes just a little float on top of a drink, 1, it's beautiful. 2, it's delicious, and on a swizzle, I know it always looks good. So that could be also a good solution to have original dark as a blend and then OFTD as a little drop up there. But that's definitely a swizzle for adults. So OFTD, that's definitely an ingredient. You are selling an ingredient. I know some professionals out there sip it, but they are professionals. Okay, it's not recommended for sipping. This is 69% alcohol. How did that come around? Why do we have an overproof rum in our portfolio? OFTD, the origins of OFTD, really comes from the tiki world. That was back in 2016. Got a phone call from a tiki bar owner that's actually very well known out there. He owns Smuggler's Cove in San Francisco, an incredible tiki bar, Martin Kate, very good friend. And he was telling me about his frustrations on a rum brand that is a very classic overproof rum brand that exists, since the 1930s, but that has changed hands so many times that frankly, the taste of that rum brand in those classic cocktails from the 1930s, in tiki cocktails, doesn't taste the same, really doesn't match, what he's looking for with the new expression of that rum brand. So he's telling me, Guillaume, we've known each other for so long, why don't you make an overproof blend just for Smuggler's Cove? It's very hard when you have a friend like this, who's also one of your biggest accounts in the nation, to ask you this. Because obviously we don't make blends customized for one account. We're like every restaurant, we serve every table, right? We're not just one. So I explained that to him and I told him, but you know what? You might not be the only one with that frustration. How about we talk to Paul McGee, that was at the time 3 Dots and a Dash, who's Adrien's mentor, right? Adrien, you worked with him for many years. And, how about I talk to Scotty Shooter, at Dirty Dick in Paris, who's actually a tiki bar, and that used to be a sex shop. How about I talk to Paul McFadden, who was working at Trailer Happiness at the time in London, another like legendary tiki bar in the UK. How about I talk to Jeff Berry, who was actually with me when I got that phone call that day. I was in Mexico, and another one at Terres de Cocktail on tour. And maybe I should talk to the owner too, make sure he's okay that, if we do that kind of project together, because the whole idea was to get together in one room with all those tiki rum experts, those nerds, right? And to create the ultimate overproof rum. So I talked to Alexander, gave him a phone call, explained the idea to him in 15 minutes. And that was back in the days when we had no marketing department. That was just me and Alexander. And Alexander said, great idea, fly with it. Here we go. OFTD was born on a phone call. And then, of course, we called Professor Wondrich to be part of this. And before you knew it, we met together at Terres de Cocktail 2016. Alexander brought a ton of different blending components. That was at Arnaud's in a very private room. That was like the private meeting. We didn't want anybody to know that we were working together on a really cool project like this. And then we basically decided that day that we were not going to make a replica of an old classic overproof rum. We were actually going to make something entirely new altogether, but that would work in a lot of tiki cocktails. That was the decision. So basically, an overproof rum that is delicious enough to sip and also to blend in great tiki recipes. Okay, so that was the guidance from the whole team to Alexander. He worked on the blend, and then we met again with all those guys in Cognac in December, I think 17th, 2016, right? And then this is when we finalized it. That was a long day, tasting rum. Everybody was in a great mood. There was a lot of glasses on the on the table in Cognac. We were trying all kinds of blend. We were walking around first, in the cellars, picking from different casks, different type of rum. And back then, Wondrich really was into like a Barbados rum, an 8-year-old Barbados pot still rum that he really loved. So we took a sample of that with us. And then he's the one that had the idea to bring that Barbados component into the blend. And so when he suggested this, we actually made the blend like this with Jamaica, Guyana, and that Barbados component, right? And then we had him taste it. And then David tasted it and he said, "Oh, fuck, that's delicious." Mm-hmm. And we decided that this would be the name of the blend, and that would be the blend. That's really how the whole thing happened. So OFTD, "Oh, fuck, that's delicious," which old-fashioned traditional dark is for the federal US government, right? But OFTD, the true meaning is when we decided that this would be the blend, that was what we all thought of it. It is a delicious overproof rum. So the key selling point of OFTD is that this is the proof that you can actually be high proof and delicious. Overproof rum was known all these years to be, just something that you spike a punch with to get people drunk, right? Basically, or like the nightmare of a college party, basically. No. The great overproof is actually possible. It's difficult to make because when you put high proof to a blend, high proof, what is high proof? High proof is like a giant magnifier on everything you have in a blend. When you have a lot of alcohol, all the defects are so easy to spot, right? So you need something that has absolutely no defect, that is absolutely perfect. That's why that blend is so delicious, because you have perfection at 69% alcohol. Okay, why 69? Because 151 was already a classic, didn't have a good rep, really. Okay, and we wanted to still be overproof, but basically be at the overproof of Navy Royal proof. So David had the whole explanation about this, but we all thought that 69% would be the perfect, unique proof of our overproof rum. So OFTD is a lot of different applications, but most importantly is really more sold like a spice, into a cocktail program. It's more like an element that you add to a blend. It's rarely a base. It could be, but usually those cocktails are, sometimes when people put on a menu only 2 per person, for the whole night kind of thing. Usually there are cocktails that sell actually because everybody wants one, right? But it's usually part of a blend, components used in infusions. Sometimes it could be used in the kitchen as well. It's of course highly flammable. So this is again a component for a bar program that is so missing out there. There is just nothing like that besides ours. The way to describe it is an essence of molasses. It's like molasses bitters, basically. Okay, are you guys putting your lips on this? Mm-hmm. It's yes. Dangerously easy to drink, right?
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
So again, with stuff like this, you're purveyors. You come from the back of the kitchen, you talk to the chef, and you sell on that truffle. That's what it is. So this is how I would present the Maison Ferrand portfolio for somebody who wants to work with us, who's willing to develop a cocktail program and have a whole diversity of taste. Any questions?
You said that the Stiggins was cast in oak. How long is it cast for?
About 8 months, 7 to 8 months. Yeah. That's why we have Stiggins cask. I don't know if you saw that, but out there we've been swapping barrels already with some whiskey producers. And, I've been told that there is a bourbon producer that has some Stiggins cask with bourbon in it right now. Interesting. I can't tell you the name, otherwise that would be, but it's been happening already. We did this with Teeling back in the days. I don't know if you remember the Stiggins Fancy Smoky formula.
Yep.
That was a barrel swap we did with Teeling whiskey, where they gave us barrels of peated Irish whiskey that we used to make a Stiggins Smoky. Okay, and then in exchange we gave them Stiggins barrels, right, that contain pineapple rum, and they made a special release of Teeling whiskey, but just for Europe. We never saw it in the US, unfortunately. Voilà. Any more questions, guys?
This is great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Is
you.
it-
Lots of notes.
Was it beneficial?
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. Yeah, and I've recorded it too, so I'll share it with the rest of the sales team and so they can
Yeah,
watch it
so-
on our YouTube. But
So obviously, if you want me to do this again with other sales team, I can. But also, I have some good news for you. You will have now a great professional working with you much more closely. She's a great bartender on premise, dedicated to on premise. That's been her world for many years. Today, her position is to educate the rum nationally, engage consumers, trade. But she's on that call. Adrienne Stoner is on a special mission to work with the on-premise accounts, key accounts, or any accounts that you feel that Adrienne could bring value to your day or to your sales call. Right? She'll be coming to Georgia monthly to come and visit you and work with you and help you present that portfolio. Okay.
Cool.
that's
Me and
awesome.
Coach. Yeah, I'll see you guys starting September, but I'll link up with Mike and get a schedule planned for the fall so that it won't be a surprise when I'm in town.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you.
We're excited to have you.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
And obviously, Adrienne is a great educator. That's her job. That's what she does for rum. But she knows every single of the products extremely well. It's not a problem. She's a Ferrand, and before being our rum community liaison, she was the on-premise manager for Illinois and Chicago. So okay.
Truth.
Hey, Guillaume, it's Mike here too. I've been on the call.
Yep.
Been traveling a little bit today, but thanks so much, by the way. This was fantastic. I learn something every time you speak, and it's always a positive. So thank you for going so in depth on each one of them. We did record this, so we will have this available on our Savannah channel that all of our reps have access to. But yeah, I'd love to continue to do this with other teams, as your time allows. And just to echo earlier, Adrienne, we're super excited to have you. So thank you so much for putting in the effort and the time, starting in September. And then, we do have Alexander, Adrienne, and Guillaume in market in August. So we're going to have some really fun stuff planned. Patrick sent out some event info, but we'll have a whole week, the week of August 20th and 21st of everybody in town. So